Welcome to this week's edition of the NFL Preview Show for Capital City Sports. I'm Ben Parsons, and I'm here with
D'Angelo Stevenson.
And the first game we're going to talk about today is the Jets at the Giants. D'Angelo, who do you think will win the battle for New York?
Well, this is a big rivalry for the state of New York. The Giants are coming off an upsetting loss against the Washington Redskins, and plus the Jets have the best defense out of the two clubs, so I look at the Jets taking home the win.
I agree with you because the Giants' defense is depleted right now, and Ryan Fitzpatrick looked great last week. He had 4 touchdowns and threw for over 200 yards. I think he's going to keep that going, and they're going to beat the Giants this weekend. The next game we will talk about today is the Seahawks at the Vikings. Who do you think is going to take this one, D'Angelo?
Well, with the record over 500 at 6-5, the Seahawks just doesn't look impressive to me. They don't look like the Super Bowl team we've seen in the past couple of years. And although the Minnesota Vikings are looking really impressive with the lead rusher in Adrian Peterson, and I think they'll take the win at home.
That's a good pick, D'Angelo, because even though the Seahawks had a great week last week, they put up a ton of points on a Steelers defense that is generally pretty decent. I think the Vikings will solidify their position at the top of the NFC North. Now, the final game we will talk about is the Dallas Cowboys at the Washington Redskins. Who do you think is going to win this game, D'Angelo?
Well, there's just so much drama going on in the Cowboys season with the loss of Tony Romo last week against the Carolina Panthers. And that ugly loss they had against the Carolina Panthers at that. The Washington Redskins coming off an impressive win against the New York Giants, like I said earlier, so I'm going to go with the Washington Redskins.
That's a good pick, D'Angelo. I think it's fascinating that the Cowboys are only 2 games out of the division, and the Redskins are in the driver's seat for the NFC East. Now, I think for the Redskins to do well in this game, they need to run the ball well and set up their play action, and I think they can do this against the Dallas Cowboys defense, so I think the Redskins will win as well. It'll just be a closer game than normal. That wraps things up for us. Now let's kick it on over to Danny and Lorento for the AFC preview.
Thanks, guys. This is Lorento Campbell.
And I'm Danny Kelly.
And we're here to give you a preview of the AFC. First and foremost, we're going to start off with the Texans versus the Bills. How you feel about that one?
I think this is going to be a very close game, but I ultimately see the Texans winning this game. I think their defense will continue to dominate, and I think J.J. Watt will have a really good game, maybe get a sack or 2. I think they'll end up stopping LaShawn McCoy and Tyrod Taylor, and I think the Texans will come out with a 7 to 10 point win.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. I think the Texans are going to come out with this win. This is an evenly matchup. Just like you said earlier, the Texans' defense is really good, led by J.J. Watt, of course, who could be a possible Defensive Player of the Year candidate. And then on the other side, you have Stephon Gilmore, who's doing pretty good this season. So I feel like this is going to be a good defensive matchup with 2 offenses that are just getting it together. But ultimately, I feel like the Texans are going to get this one. Our next game to preview is the Chiefs versus the Raiders. This game here, I feel like is another close matchup. You got 2 teams out of the AFC West that's, trying to prevail themselves and try to, maybe scrap for the last playoff spot if they can win out. The Chiefs, they're on like a 5-game winning streak, but the Raiders on the other side, they're on a losing streak. But the Raiders this year, they've looked impressive to me. So I feel like this is not a game that the Chiefs can take lightly, and also not a game that the Raiders obviously cannot take lightly. But at the end of the day, I feel like the Raiders are going to end their streak. You have Derek Carr, you got Amari Cooper. That duo, they're young, they're energetic, and I feel like they really want this dub.
Yeah, I'm going to have to disagree with you, but I do think it's going to be a close game. And like you said, both teams really need to take this game to heart because the Chiefs obviously are trying to go for a playoff spot. In a really weak AFC this year, I think they could end up getting a playoff spot. They're at 6-5 right now. The Raiders are at 5-6. They really need to try and get that spot too. But I think the Chiefs are going to be a little bit too much for the Raiders to handle. I think Alex Smith will have a pretty good game, and I think the Chiefs will come out on top by about 3 points or so.
And last but not least, we have the Colts versus the Steelers. How do you feel like this game is going to transpire?
Well, this is the big game of the week. It's Sunday Night Football. This is a huge stage. I think this is going to be a very close game. Both teams are having some quarterback controversies right now. For the Steelers, you have Big Ben, who went down last week with a concussion. I'm not sure if he's going to play or not. I think if Big Ben plays in this game, the Steelers will get the win. But if he doesn't, I feel like the Colts will win this game. I think Matt Hasselbeck will have a pretty decent night, and I think the Colts will come out on top if Ben Roethlisberger is unable to go.
Well, this game, like you said, is an interesting one. The Colts, they're fighting for a playoff spot, trying to get on top of the AFC South. And with Matt Hasselbeck at quarterback, I really like him playing quarterback for the Colts. So for me, I feel like the Colts are going to get this regardless of who's playing, because Matt Hasselbeck's performance is kind of I would say Kobe, yes, not in the fact that, he's doing bad, but he's, just doing what he can because he has nothing to lose. It's late in his career. It's probably nearing retirement. So, he's really putting everything on the line. So I really like the way that Matt Hasselbeck is playing. So I feel like either way, if Ben plays or if he doesn't play, then I feel like the Colts are going to get this because, Matt Hasselbeck really, really wants it. All in all, that wraps things up for me and Danny. We're going to send things off to Chandler and Dalton for fantasy. Talk to you next episode.
Thanks, guys. We're going to dive straight into our likes for the week. And the first player I want to talk about is Ryan Tannehill. He's facing Baltimore, and they give up the second most points to quarterbacks. And also, he had 3 touchdowns last week, and they have a new offensive coordinator, so I think he's really, really going to explode this week.
Yeah, I gotta agree with you on that one. And I'm gonna actually talk about Devontae Freeman. He's coming back from injury this week, and he's projected to score 15.4 fantasy points on ESPN Fantasy Football this week, so I think he's going to have a really good game. The second like that I have is Adrian Peterson. Now, I know he's playing Seattle's defense, but Seattle actually hasn't been too good against the run this season, especially away from Seattle. Not only that, Adrian Peterson is the leading rusher in the NFL, so I think he's going to have a big game this week for you.
And my running back for this week is going to be Doug Martin. He's facing Atlanta, and they give up the 3rd most fantasy points to running backs. And also the last 2 weeks, the Buccaneers have given him under 20 carries, and so I just can't picture that happening again. So I'm looking for him to have a great game against Atlanta.
Okay, all right, fair enough. My last pick, as far as quarterbacks are concerned for this week, my last like is going to be Tom Brady. Now, I know he's probably going to be without Gronkowski this week, but he is playing the Philadelphia Eagles, who haven't been too good against the pass this season. Not only that, Tom Brady's only had 3 games this season where he scored under 20 fantasy points, and I think he's going to score a lot more than that this week in a bounce-back effort against the Philadelphia Eagles.
All right, and I'm going to end this segment with a wide receiver. And my wide receiver play is Alshon Jeffrey. He's facing San Francisco, and they give up the 9th most points to wide receivers. And also he's had under 100 yards in the last 2 games he's played. And I just can't picture that happening again because Alshon Jeffrey is Jay Cutler's favorite target, and I think he's going to go off.
All right, now we're going to move on to our dislikes of the week. Now, I'm going to kick things off with my first dislike in Washington with Kirk Cousins. Now, I know this is a little shocking because he did have a pretty good game last week against the New York Giants, but he's usually the type of quarterback who will have a good game and then a bad game, and I think he's going to have a bad game against the Dallas Cowboys on Monday night. So I would not start him this week.
Yeah, my quarterback's going to be Phillip Rivers. I know he exploded versus the Jaguars, but he's playing Denver this week, and Denver gives up the fewest points to quarterbacks, and so I just can't picture Phillip Rivers having a big game.
My second dislike for this week is going to be Alfred Blue of the Houston Texans. Now, it's still yet to be determined if he's going to play this week because he's questionable right now with an injury. But if he does play this week, I would try to stay away from him because he's playing the Buffalo Bills, and both me and Dalton know the Buffalo Bills have a pretty stout defensive line. So I would try to stay away from Alfred Blue this week.
Yeah, and a tight end to avoid this week is old, reliable Jason Witten. He's playing Washington, and they give up the 6th fewest fantasy points to tight ends. And also, Tony Romo is out for the year, and I just can't picture Matt Castle having a big game.
All right, fair enough. My last dislike for this week is going to be Demaryius Thomas of the Denver Broncos. Now, with Brock Osweiler at quarterback for the Broncos, Demaryius has kind of been, a forgotten man in that offense, and I think his struggles are going to continue this week because he's playing the San Diego Chargers, who have given up the 6th fewest points to wide receivers this season, and I think they're going to really hold Demaryius in check this week.
Yeah, my last dislike of the week is going to be Latavius Murray versus the Chiefs. They give up the 7th fewest points to running backs, and also it seems to be that every single week as of late, their defense is just getting better and better, so I would avoid him at all cost.
All right, now I'm going to move on to my sleepers for this week. I'm going to kick things off in New England with Scott Chandler. Now, like I said earlier, Rob Gronkowski is probably not going to play this week, so I think that's going to really open things up for Scott Chandler and that New England Patriot offense, especially since Danny Amendola probably isn't going to play, as well as Julian Edelman already being out. I think that Scott Chandler is going to have a lot of opportunities to shine this week against that struggling Philadelphia Eagles defense. Now, my second sleeper this week is a little bit of a shocker, which I think's makes him a true sleeper, and that's Hakeem Nicks with the New York Giants. Now, I think that the New York Jets secondary is going to really try to shut down Odell Beckham, Dwayne Harris, and Ruben Randall in that New York Giants receiving core, and I think that that's going to really open things up for Hakeem Nicks to shine in his second week in the New York Giants offense. Now, my last sleeper pick for this week is going to be Ryan Fitzpatrick of the New York Jets. Now, he's coming off a big game against the Miami Dolphins last week. Not only that, the New York Giants defense is 28th against the pass in fantasy football this season, and I think that their struggle is going to continue this week, and I think that will be a good idea for a lot of you guys to start Ryan Fitzpatrick this week in fantasy football.
And now I'm going to transition into some FanDuel picks and hopefully win you some money. The quarterback I have this week is Marcus Mariota. He's only $7,100, which is a good price, and he's playing the Jaguars, and this game is going to be a shootout. And when the matchup has been right this season, Mariota has put up a lot of points. And what you should do is stack him with tight end Delaney Walker. It's his favorite target, and he's only $6,000, and so I think that's a really, really good play for you. And then last, start running back Ronnie Hillman. He's only $6,300, and he's playing San Diego, who has the worst running defense in the league. And also, Gary Kubiak announced that Hillman's definitely getting the start, even though C.J. Anderson had a big game last week.
All right, well, that wraps things up for us. In fact, it wraps things up for us in the year 2015. On behalf of Cap City Sports, I'm Chandler Mack.
I'm Dalton Aho.
And we'll see you in 2016.